This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Got quite a bit to talk about, including Pistons, Lions, and Tigers. But no Red Wings, no Wolverines, no Spartans. But it is a really good time to talk about the Pistons hiring Michael Blackstone as Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations and Fred Vinson as assistant coach under Monty Williams. They've worked together for 14 years with the New Orleans Pelicans organization. So it shows, it could tell visibly that they have a lot of chemistry together.
Yes, for sure. Now, in terms of what this means specifically for each person, I think for Michael Blackstone, is going to be under the same procedures that he was working on when he was with the New Orleans. When Michael Langdon, trained in Langdon, became was running the show there in a sense. So it's going to be under the same capacity, similar role that Blackstone will be working here that he did in New Orleans, since he was, I believe, he was the EVP. Since 2021 in terms of working under Langdon. But like you said, him and Vincent have been working together for far longer than that. In terms of Fred Vinson's role within the team, what he's going to be doing, it should be worth noting first and foremost. It mentioned, like you said, Taylor, he was being hired to Monty Williams' staff. That was made with an emphasis. But that leads a lot of people to believe that Monty Williams will be not fired. In fact, he will be brought back for at least another season as Pistons head basketball coach. And I think the reason why that you saw this move and being emphasized for what's being done is because Fred Vinson had a specialty in terms of developing shooting, developing offense within your players. That's why you saw, if you want to say resurgence, or if you want to say the remarkable development that we saw in New Orleans under the likes of Lonzo Ball when he had after he had this disaster run with the Lakers, and Brandon Ingram growing into the offensive player that people had envisioned him of being. That was due in part to being under the tutelage of Fred Vinson. So now you're going to be bringing that type of caliber coach over to this team, where there's talent on this team, yes, but there's no shooting. And in this day and age of NBA and frankly basketball in general, if you do not have a shooter, you are screwed. If you have no shooting, you're done. You're cooked. So knowing that you have a backcourt that has a primary ball handler who, yes, is decent at shooting and is trying to get better at that. He's not known as a shooter. We're talking about Cade Cunningham. And then we have another player in Jaden Ivey, assuming that they don't trade him around or after the draft, as a player who works better as a slasher, but again, poor development as a shooter, which is the constant theme that you're seeing, that you had saw Troy Weaver in terms of constructing this roster that he had constructed over the past few years. Good players, good talent, good athleticism, but where was the shooting? And you usually saw that when he got that in bench players and role players from either in trades or signing him off the bench in free agency. So there was a much better point of emphasis. It feels that no, we want to try to develop that within our own core, within the players that we have drafted and selected. So if you're going to see that potential development that we saw from Bonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, if we can see that transitioned over here to say a Jaden Ivey or maybe an Asar Thompson to an extent, and of course even more to how what will Cade Cunningham. Because even though, yes, you showed an improvement with the shooting game, there's still obviously a higher ground that you can get to. So that's what I'm going to be looking forward to in terms of seeing what Fred Vinson and Michael Blackstone can bring to the table in terms of front office and on the coaching staff. Now, I did have another note, if you didn't have it on your notes, Taylor, but they also made another move within the past week or so with their front office. They hired J.R. Holden. Now, it's worth noting that J.R. Holden, it feels like a full circle moment in a sense because he was a former player, and when his post-playing career began, I believe it was 2014 or 2016, it had started with him as an internal scout for the Pistons. Eventually, he transitioned and parlayed that into a career to where he was a scouter for international talent for the 76ers. He also became director of player personnel with the Brooklyn Nets. So now here he is again now back in Detroit, and he's in a different role. But I would say it may be more akin to what he was doing during his time in Brooklyn in terms of player personnel, scouting, that's things of that nature. And he does have ties with Trajan Langdon as well because he actually played with him when they were on the same team playing overseas. I believe this is back around 2003, 2004. He played in CKSA Moscow. That is a Russian basketball league. I had mentioned before when we were discussing the Langdon hire of how Russia was one of the countries that he had played in. Turns out he had a teammate in Moscow, and now that teammate is working with him in the front office.
Yep. So J.R. Holden is a scout.
Well, we don't know his official role. It was not specified from the reports I had been finding out. All I know is that he has previous experience in terms of working as a scout, as well as being, and again, his previous title with the Brooklyn Nets was director of player personnel. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the same title here in Detroit or just something similar but under a different name.
All right. So J.R. Holden has been hired. He could be a scout. He could be the general manager or an assistant general manager.
Not the general manager. And in fact, if anything, they may. Who knows? Who knows if they'll even hire a general manager, or if they decide to say, you know what, Trajan Langdon is making these moves as president of basketball operations for a reason. We'll see where it goes from there. But will it surprise me if they don't hire a general manager? No. But we still got to see what they're going to be cooking here between now and even up to the draft at the very least.
All right. So before we get to the Pistons question of the week, the Pistons and Cade Cunningham were in talks a little while ago of a contract extension. So Cade Cunningham, I think, still wants to stay in Detroit. And like you pointed out, their shooting accuracy was just off.
That's an understatement. There was other things in terms of defense, having the right lineups on there. It was a full around all effort earned job by both players and coaches to make that team as bad as possible last year. And you can only hope they can have nowhere to go but up. But in terms of what this means for Cade Cunningham with his contract extension, first and foremost, the fact that he has shown that he even wants to stay here to begin with speaks a lot about his character, his maturity, the type of player that he wants to be for this team, for this franchise, and for this city to look up to and point out as a positive example. I can admire that in one sense. It's risky, yes. You could. A lot of people would probably that's in his position would probably make the opposite type of choice, say, "Hey, get me the hell up out of here as fast as possible." But that's Cade. If he feels like if you're selecting me to do something, I have a job to do. I won't stop until I get it done. That seems to be his type of mentality. And in terms of when you already have that 1 foot in mentality of, hey, I want to stay, the easier it will be to get this deal done. I believe I saw in Bleacher Report that it was being detailed as 99.9% likely that Cade will get a max deal. The question is, we just don't know how much. We don't know the amount of years. We don't know the amount of money. We don't know the signing bonuses, the incentives, the guaranteed, all that sort of thing. What we do know for now is that he's currently his current salary, I should say, is what he's going to be making for this upcoming season will be $13.9 million. After that, he is a possible restricted free agent in 2025 because that's when his rookie deal will have been expired. So obviously, you want to avoid all that confusion, avoid all that complication, get a deal done as quickly as you can. If it is, some are expecting it to be of the 5-year max deal. Could be up to as much as 225 million. Again, we won't know for certain until ink is put to paper. But I think when you see video clips and stories of saying, or that's referencing the fact that Rasheed Wallace has been making recent podcast appearances and whatnot, and one of those appearances, besides the fact that he wasn't when he's not arguing with Draymond Green about which team would win, the 04 Pistons or the 17 Warriors, he did mention his belief in Cade Cunningham. He has stated that he thinks, or at least has given positive praise to Cade, his game, and what he brings to this team, and what he feels that he can be for this team. So that alone gives that type of endorsement from someone who has a lot of positive memories with this fan base. Should give some people to believe that, hey, there's reason to believe in Cade Cunningham still. And once this deal gets done, yes, there'll be more questions. Yes, there'll be more pressure. But you have the general sense that this is the guy that you wanted to get for a reason. So what better way to do it, to keep him here, is to lock him up before his deal expires.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to stay on top of that one, too. Now for the Pistons question of the week. Can the Pistons further develop their players with their new regime in terms of shooting and defense for a couple instances?
To me, it still comes down to how will Monty Williams operate things this time around compared to what he did in last year. Does he want to even be here? Because there was a general sense that, that you're seeing Adrian Wojnarowski taking shots at when discussing the Lakers' current situation about, while not naming Monty Williams, he basically brought up the situation of what the Pistons are going through as a hypothetical to where, hey, do the Lakers want to be going down this same path? So to me, it comes down to what can Monty Williams do to put his players in the best spots in terms of putting together the right lineups, the right rotations, and making sure that, hey, your best players play. If you have a Jaden Ivey, you play him. Simple stuff like that. So my answer to that question is just, can they further develop? Yes, but will they? No. Well, you have to ask Monty Williams about that.
Well, they're going to have to prove it on the court, more importantly. The Lions have signed kicker Jake Bates of the UFL's Michigan Panthers to a 2-year contract. Earlier, they were among a few teams to sign him, and the Lions just pounced on him like really soon after that report. They're probably, and Jake Bates is the UFL's version of Justin Tucker, if you know what I mean. Not just Matt Prater. We're talking 64-yard field goal, for example. We've discussed this before.
We have, for sure. We have definitely at length sometimes, and this felt like some type of inevitable manifestation that was coming to life. And I think if you're fans, for some portions of the fan base, they're obviously excited. They're happy to see this come to fruition. You mentioned of how he's basically the UFL's version of Justin Tucker. He has shown consistency of being able to hit 60 or more yard field goals. You mentioned the 64-yarder. That was the longest, I believe, in all of the UFL, and he seemingly hit that with ease. Now, worth noting as well, you had mentioned that other teams were looking to potentially sign him. It seems that the other two teams that he was considering besides the Lions were either the Commanders or the Packers. So the fact that the Lions were able to keep him in-house, good move, good mark on them. But it's not a guarantee that he's going to win the job. James Turner had himself a pretty good spring. Now, I will say that he may have a better shot at beating out Michael Badgley. Sorry to say that for all you Money Badger fans, but from what I've been seeing online and other reports, James Turner had a much better spring than Badgley. It wouldn't be surprised in terms of this three-man race for the kicker spot. It wouldn't surprise me if Badgley is the odd man out, but things are still remain to be seen. There's still training camp. There's still preseason. So, but hey, in terms of the Lions recognizing the weaknesses that they had on several fronts. This was definitely a one area that they had to at least look at because, hey, let's say you're faced with a situation to where, would you rather try kicking a 57-yard field goal to go up by multiple scores in an NFC Championship game versus trying to risk it all and go for it on 4th down and 7 or whatever, having a kicker that you have more confidence in should make those type of decisions much easier. That's all what it boils down to. They did not have the kicker that they have, the confidence that they have in their kicker going into to those situations in San Francisco. If you replay that situation this time differently with what we've seen out of Turner and what we potentially could see out of Bates, that will make that decision a lot more interesting, if not a completely different one.
Yep, indeed. And that leads us to the Lions question of the week. Can Jake Bates win the starting kicking position for the Lions? Their training camp is coming up, and then they got the preseason coming up in August.
Well, I essentially answered that about a couple of seconds earlier, but like I said, he has a better chance of being, at the very least, a backup, considering what Michael Badgley is doing at the moment versus what James Turner is doing. It's still a 3-person race at the end of the day. We got to see how Bates handles certain aspects, situations, and rhythms kicking in the NFL versus kicking in the UFL. Yes, he's playing in the same same stadium, but atmosphere-wise, in terms of and other certain intricacies, it's much different over here than it is over there. So we have to see how that plays out for him.
All right. Yep. And the Lions were not even done yet. They signed former Kansas City Chiefs linebacker Ben Niemann, who played 12 seasons in the NFL, 70 tackles with the Arizona Cardinals in 2022.
12 seasons. I'm getting 7 seasons. I know he played in Iowa, though, but he got 7 seasons.
It was in a TikTok post.
So, but that explains it a little bit. But I got some brief background info on Ben Niemann.
Yeah.
He is. This will be his. He's a 7-year veteran from Iowa. He did start his career with Kansas City. In fact, he was on their first Super Bowl team in the 2020 season. Played with them for about 3 or 4 years. Then for the past couple of years, he's been with Arizona, and last season he was with the Broncos. So it's worth noting, though, most importantly, one particular reason that they may have brought him over. Yes, having depth in your linebacking room helps, but check this out. Over the course of his career, Ben Niemann has played in the special teams role for over 1,600 snaps. 1,600 snaps as a special teams player over a 7-year career. And you're talking about a team that already has the player, I would say a special teams unit that is that has the right players for them in that spot, like a Reeves Maven, for example, like a Malcolm Rodriguez. So this could be an example of trying to add to their special teams unit some more versatility, some more depth, and also you have to consider the fact that we're getting with this upcoming season the new kickoff rules. This helps change the dynamics of how teams are going to be scheming and putting plays for the special teams unit. So if you're going to get players that are well versed in that area, to me, this is the type of move that you do. So I don't blame Detroit for doing this. I think it's a good move for depth, and it's also a good move for personnel and package play decisions as well.
All right. So what is your grade for Ben Niemann?
I can give it a C plus. Like I said, it's depth purposes. We don't know of how much capacity he will be playing versus the linebacking room and or on special teams. But it's clear that they have a role for him, so they wouldn't have had that figured out if they hadn't decided to go make the decision to go after him to begin with.
All right, C plus. The Tigers placed shortstop Javier Baez on the 10-day injured list with lumbar spine inflammation, and recall infielder Ryan Kreidler, who made his second time in the Major League Baseball level.
His first time was in 2022, I believe. I think he had hit a couple of homers or something around that time span in September or so.
Yeah.
This is like his second time called up on the show. Quick note on the Lions, though, before we move on to the Tigers. Should make a quick mention. They had finished wrapping up OTAs, got minicamp done and out the way. So some quick notes. We saw, we had heard over the weekend or so that they would lose a practice day on Monday due to quote unquote player violations or contact violations. However, that's categorized. I doubt people are going to be losing sleep over that, other than the certain extremist portions of the fan base, but we don't pay attention to them. Also worth noting that young players were featured in the Tuesday finale for OTAs. Some rookies, some second-year players, some undrafted free agents, that type of thing. And some notes on certain players. Kelvin Shepard, the linebackers coach, was having his press conference, and he was quite detailed in terms of giving his thoughts or his answers on Jack Campbell. Even though this is his second year coming up, he was getting a lot of green dot reps because Alex Anzalone was absent from OTA. So, again, this is an example of trying to get some of these young players situated for roles that they will eventually take on for themselves. And I think Kelvin Shepard noticed that because he made a comment about how Jack, the way he was handling things, calling plays, reading situations, he looked like an 8-year veteran instead of a player entering his sophomore season. So high praise to hear from Kelvin Shepard, but it's something to feel optimistic about when you see the leap that some of these players that Brad Holmes has drafted have made, whether it be in their rookie year or from year 1 to year 2. So there's that. And a couple other quick notes. They had made a hire in terms of outbidding Arizona. They basically snatched one of their head analytics guys, Charlie Atkins, to be their new senior director of football administrations. Is essentially replacing the void or vacancy that had been put there by Brandon Sosna, being hired over by the Washington Commanders. And also, quick note, they officially have all their 2024 draft picks signed because Terrion Arnold signed his rookie contract this week.
Exactly. And yeah, we heard about Terrion Arnold signing his rookie contract. It was a matter of time before it came. So I think Terrion Arnold is ready already.
He definitely has the body language and the aura of someone who feels ready. He feels ready for the moment already, and he has yet to play it down a single snap in the NFL.
Yep, he definitely does. So back to Ryan Kreidler right now, and I'm looking at the box score after the Tigers' 13-5 win in Houston. Kreidler has a 222 batting average and a 586 OPS as of right now. He drew a walk, but Tarek Skubal Friday night 4-0 loss in Houston. He gave up all 4 runs. He's human, 8-2. Not quite that. That was definitely not Cy Young caliber right there. But the Tigers, like I mentioned before, a 13-5 win. Riley Green, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 10 total bases, 4 for 5, also with a walk, 2 runs scored, 256 batting average, but an 836 OPS after that performance. Yikes. 36 points, Chris Castellani pointed out on X. Wenzel Perez and Colt Keith, each 4 for 6. Carson Kelly, 3 for 4. Jack Flaherty, 5 shutout innings, 6 strikeouts, only 3 hits allowed, only 1 walk issued. Jack Flaherty has been the second best pitcher on this Tigers roster, and maybe one of another one of the best pitchers in the American League, if not all of Major League Baseball, along with Tarek Skubal.
Yeah, that was a needed pick me up, so to speak, because Skubal did have a disappointing start yesterday, but it's not too much of a surprise when you can see some of the bats that are the experienced bats that are in that Houston lineup up and down. And frankly, for the Tigers, the pitcher that they have to be matched up against, it doesn't surprise me how they looked in that one because Justin Brown, excuse me, Hunter Brown, excuse me, the starter for them. Basically, from what I saw, which is kind of funny because I saw a fan made a comment on Twitter. It was like, only the Tigers can make Hunter Brown look like Justin Verlander. And I had made a reply, you know what? The funny part / the sick part about that kind of is true in multiple ways because Hunter Brown, get this, right? Detroit native, born and raised in the city, obviously means that he grew up a Tigers fan. And guess what player that he said he modeled his game after the most? Justin friggin' Verlander. So, of course, he's going to look and perform like Justin Verlander in his prime against the team that he grew up watching. Frankly, I remember hearing of Hunter Brown back when I want to say around the 2021, 2022 postseason when the Astros were making one of their playoff runs towards the World Series. And I saw them giving some type of feature, a little bit of a mini feature on Brown, saying he was one of their young up-and-coming prospects. And his mannerisms and his mechanics and even his throwing delivery made me do a double take because I'm thinking, that kind of looks like Verlander a little bit. So it's not a surprise to really see this come full circle in the way for him. As for Skubal, hey, you're not every start is going to be perfect. Trust me. I'm sure like past Cy Young winners have had their own share of FUBARs, even in the midst of a season where they won that award. So to me, it's nothing to be fretful about. He still is able to give you a solid quality start, against Milwaukee to balance out his week. And you just, brush it off. You get to the next one.
Yep. The snowman, Brian Snow, was tuning in from Indiana on YouTube. Yes, please keep watching here on YouTube. Watch each and every episodes of our episodes on YouTube in full to and know the truth.
Yeah,
I want to touch.
I was going to say, speaking of Verlander, the reason probably one good reason why the Tigers had an offensive explosion today is because Verlander was a late scratch. He was supposed to start today, but he was a late scratch. I believe he was due to some either neck stiffness or neck soreness, something going on, some type of discomfort with his neck. That's why I had read from the headline. So he was a late scratch from his start, and the Tigers pounced on it. And also, quick wording of note, one of the players that had an intrigue about Justin Henry Malloy. He has hit his first couple of career home runs over the past week or so. You hope he's getting those jitters down so where he can make those adjustments and get used to the groove of what he's going up against here now on the major leagues. And the Tigers had a bit of an up and down past couple of weeks or so. They're still 4 games back of that second wild card spot, and they're only at 34 and 36, just 2 games under 500.
Yep, and 4 games back of that third American League wild card spot. Let's. Yeah, this doesn't look right. There we go. And 11 games back at the AL Central. They're not going to reach. I want to get back to Hunter Brown. He's age 25, but he's got a 3-5 record at a 500 ERA flat to be exact, and a 143 WHIP. And only the Tigers' offense, like you pointed out, can make him look like Justin Verlander when he's actually not.
Right. But it was just quite funny and ironic to see that happen against us when I was like, oh, of course they would do it. This is the team he grew up watching against. This is the player that he mounted himself up against. And this is a team that has absolutely shitty offense. So, right, this is a what better team to spruce up your stats up against than this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, the Tigers question of the week. Will the Tigers buy, sell, or stand pat near the MLB non-waiver trade deadline?
For some reason, I want them to buy. I so desperately want them to buy, but for some reason, I see them standing pat. Um, I just don't. I don't see them selling. If it gets really bad, then yeah, I can see it. But I don't think the mood or feeling I feel this time around compared to last year is far different. Last year, I would have said yes, sell easily. This year, I'd say you either stand pat and you try to do something from your minor league call ups and injury heal ups, or damn it, you try to buy in because you're trying to get a playoff spot. Now, that's just my gut feeling on this. But what would the Tigers do if I were to make a guess? I would say stand pat because, like I said, at the end of the day, some of these moves you still got to you're gonna need the approval, not just necessarily from Scott Harris, but Scott Harris is probably going to need some approval of his own on some of these moves by Chris Ilitch. So, because of the Chris factor, I can't be too confident saying or stating that the Tigers would be buyers.
Yeah, if they were to buy, would they go after a shortstop to replace Javier Baez and then buy him out later on?
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's just a trick question. Now, wishful thinking, at least. So, what all did we learn in this episode?
Well, we learned that the Lions are making strides and trying to cover all their holes in various ways, whether it be in front office or in their special teams department, by making the signing of Jake Bates, making the signing of Ben Niemann. We see what they're trying to go, what their angle is in terms of that department. We learned that the Tigers are still basically they're in that mediocre stage of what can we see them do? What can they do? Can they get to 500? Can they make a run? Can they maintain a hot stretch? Can they find a way to not fall out of pace with the other teams contending for a wild card spot? That's what we learned about the Tigers this week in terms of this league at the very least. And for the Pistons, we have learned that they're wanting to make some quick moves to their front office and their coaching staff to get themselves some sort of strategy to go over of what to do for this offseason, starting with the draft and free agency coming in as well. Speaking of free agency, we also learned that Cade Cunningham's deal, his extension to stay in Detroit, will likely be done, as it is a 99.9% certainty, it seems, in terms for multiple sources and reports. So it's just a matter of how long that will be, and it's probably going to be 5 years. But how much money exactly is he going to make? We don't know for certain. We don't know what the salary is going to look like in a couple of years from now or next year. But I think it is definitely with certainty that you can state that Cade Cunningham, if you want to take a bet, is he going to be staying or going? You will be taking a bet that he will likely be staying.
Yeah, I think he will stay. So that is another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on the Huddle Sports Network. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Michigan_Truth, and like its Facebook page. Subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. Like our videos and turn on all notifications on the bell icon, and watch each of our episodes on YouTube in full to help improve our watch hours and help us get monetized. Follow it and listen to it in audio form on Spreaker. Follow me on Twitter or X at also TikTok and Instagram at DT2Phillips. Also on YouTube at DT2Phillips. And on Twitch at DT2Phillips1984. Follow Ed Smith on X, Twitter, on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch, and on YouTube at EdSmith313. Business endorsements go to Athletico Physical Therapy on Woodward and Ferndale, the B4 Foundation. Cali Tickets, call Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. Cuts by Melanie in Lake City. Let's roll with it, rolled ice cream in Cadillac. Follow them on TikTok at the Food Mafia LLC and on Instagram at the Food Mafia Rolled Ice Cream, and like their Facebook page. This past week's flavor of the week was blackberry cobbler with dark chocolate drizzle. Tempting, man. Northern Star Event Rentals in Cadillac. Call Heather Krzyzewski at 231-884-8195 and like their Facebook page. Union Barber in Birmingham and Ferndale. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. United Mobile Power Wash and Dry Ice Works in Southfield. And Well-Being with Catherine Palms. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation of the Huddle Sports Network. We'll be back in at least a week or so, or even a week and a half. Until then, for Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. We observe and detect the truth about Michigan sports because the truth is out there. Stay on the lookout. Ta-ta. Hit him with a hind. Baba booey to y'all.
Stay safe, everyone, and happy Father's Day out there.
Happy Father's Day.